Hey everyone, Jamie here. Welcome to Wednesday workshops.
Workshop Wednesdays.
Workshop Wednesdays, yeah.
Yes. And today Jamie wants to talk about dopamine.
Dopamine.
Specifically, yeah.
Yes.
So
what
let's
is
talk about it.
dopamine and how to get your energy back? Because a lot of times energy comes from dopamine. You might feel like blah, right? If you release a lot of dopamine through the day, then you're going to feel very lethargic and not be able to focus, or just feel very hazy, right? Maybe you have that time.
But just to understand what a typical situation would be. So dopamine is related to rewards,
Yes.
which come from those cravings that we have,
Yeah.
and a lot of them are foods.
Yeah, but it can be other things. Yeah,
But I'm craving sugar.
Yeah.
So everybody craves sugar.
Yes.
Normal. Okay, so why do I crave sugar, first of all?
Yes, because you have a dopamine release, right? So it's actually the exact same thing as drugs or alcohol, right? Those things are very highly addictive because they affect your dopamine receptors in the brain. So basically, for instance, like if you have something like sugary, right? If you've ever seen a kid eat candy, right? You'll see that dopamine release actually physically happen on their face, right? Their eyes get really big, and then they just want more and more and more, right? They kind of crave it. So it's because back when we were hunting and gathering, whenever you found something, like say for instance a raspberry bush or something that has a lot of fat on it as well, right? Like an animal that was very fatty, then your brain tells, the dopamine receptors in your brain basically tell yourself, oh my goodness, eat that. It has a lot of energy, right? We need a lot of energy. But then now companies and a lot of people have taken over and they know what triggers that part of the brain, right? The dopamine receptors to release that dopamine is things that have very high sugar, very high sodium, salt, and very high amounts of fat.
So you're saying that it was a survival situation in the past.
Yep.
It was something that was essential. So we were rewarded by that effort.
Yep.
Right, of finding food because food was scarce. Yep. Okay, and we really wanted to find a good, rich sources of high-calorie food, high fats, high sugar.
Yep.
We got a big reward for it because it made us survive.
Yes.
Okay, so nowadays we have zero scarcity. We have an abundance, too much.
Way too much.
Too much sugar, too much fat in all
More
the
than
food
just
that we consume.
nutrition.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are just modifying that, like that base level of dopamine, right?
Yes, and then what happens too is if you have those dopamine receptors and you're releasing a lot of dopamine through the day, your brain actually brings the level of dopamine release down. Instead of saying having a normal level, you're actually below normal level. So then you'll feel very lethargic, or if you're doing something that doesn't release any dopamine, most of the time is work. If you're doing very tedious tasks and things that just are not rewarding that area, your brain's going to go towards things that have that dopamine release, right? A really good example is scrolling through Facebook. The reason why scrolling through Facebook releases that dopamine and we get addicted to that is because you're overstimulating a lot of things within the brain, right? You have a lot of colors, you have moving parts, you only have to focus for maximum 1 minute, right, on those reels. So things to reduce that dopamine release and to make it so that you're not as, say, addicted to your phone or get lost in the time of scrolling on Facebook, or you're focusing on work for 3 minutes and then you get distracted because you just find yourself randomly on Facebook, right? Because we all usually deal with Facebook a lot these days, especially with work. Ways of getting around that is make sure that you don't either have the volume on, or one trick that I've done as well to reduce that, right, is to not stimulate your brain as much. So having a black and white screen makes it a lot less attractive. So you're going to get there less often because, again, you don't have all those colors and stuff affecting the brain. So there's little tips and tricks that you can do to basically reduce the amount of dopamine that you're releasing through the day, right? So the biggest thing is, again, that dopamine release is very low, right? It brings your brain down to a level that is under normal, and then you're going to need dopamine hits basically to bring yourself back up to normal, right?
And bigger every time.
And bigger every single time, right? So you need to reduce, when you reduce the amount of dopamine hits that you have, or actions or things that release that, then you're going to be actually a lot happier at a baseline, right? Because again, it's a feel-good chemical in the brain, right? So when you do things that feel good, then that's what your brain does, right? It releases that. So like playing with your kids, that's a dopamine release. That's not going to overstimulate or overproduce dopamine, right? Like sugar, like say scrolling through Facebook and stuff, right? Because even after you're scrolling through Facebook, your brain, or if you do something that releases a lot of dopamine, your brain keeps wanting to have more and more dopamine. An example of that is if you scroll on Facebook for a couple hours, after that, you're actually going to be craving a lot more foods that have high sodium, high sugar, high fats, because you just reduced the amount of dopamine that's in your brain because you released it watching those videos. So your brain wants to get back up to a normal level. And where does it go? It always goes to the fastest option, which is usually junk food.
Fastest, yes.
Yes.
So there's no effort in that, right? So comparing those situations, the
Yes.
level of effort you need to maybe go hunting compared to the level of effort we need right now
Skip
to
the
find
dishes.
sugar, or it's quick too. When it comes to images and videos, like, it's all quick, no effort
Yes.
involved.
And the one thing too that we've done is we condense things now into a really small source. So like for instance, like butter. A lot of people are addicted to butter because it's very fatty, right? It gives you that release, right? Like if you have a nice fresh loaf of bread and then you spread butter onto that, right? Like everybody, they actually did a survey, and that is actually the best smell that people is freshly baked bread.
With butter on top.
No, just freshly baked bread. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so having basically that, so those things, right, releases the dopamine because we have reduced or condensed things into one form, right? You didn't have that back when we were hunting and gathering, so it overstimulates the brain. So again, it takes 22 pounds of milk to basically make 1 pound of butter. So condensing things like that just again triggers it because you hyper palatable foods, right?
So now
So
we need to
very
think about
processed.
ways to regulate.
Yes.
In the same way we talk about regulating our blood sugar.
Yeah.
Yes. Regulate the
Yeah.
dopamine. So that probably involves activities that require a lot of effort.
Yep. At the beginning.
Yes.
Just like everything else.
And then, but you can find activities that you enjoy, that you can feel rewarded in the end.
Yep. Yeah, like a lot of
that are
times.
good that are good for you. So not just like things I enjoy and I feel rewarded. Yeah, eating pizza. No, talking about other things that bring benefits to your life. So
Yes, exactly. Like that's one of the things too why it's sometimes for some people it's actually very difficult to eat healthy, right? Because they think that okay, well, if I'm eating healthy, I'm not going to have that feel good feeling from say eating nachos with a big plate of like nachos and cheese and all that stuff. I have to eat this raw broccoli. Well, no, it's a mix of both things, right? You want to eat healthy things that taste good, so it still gives you a little bit of the dopamine release, but not too much where then later on you're just like very lethargic. But yes, ways of keeping that steady is not overdoing it on pretty much anything, right? So if you are, say, scrolling on Facebook, don't do it for 6 hours in a day, or even 2 hours, right? Is a lot of time for your brain to just trying to focus on things, right? You probably experienced it where, okay, if you start, say, scrolling through Facebook, I'm just using this as an example, that you start laughing, okay, you see like a dog video or something and you laugh, right? You have that dopamine release to say, oh, or like a kid playing or someone doing a really funny thing. But then the more that you scroll, the more you have to look for videos that make you laugh, and the more and the more and the more
Okay,
that you're
not
laughing.
It will never be enough then.
Exactly. But then while you're watching it, the first video might laugh, but then it takes 3 videos to laugh, and then it takes 6 videos, and then it takes, right? So that actually shows you what's going on in kind of real
That's
time.
a trap, yeah.
Yes, it is, yeah, because you want more and more and more, right? Same as candy, same as fast food, same as everything else, right? So usually the first like 2 bites of anything you're craving is the dopamine release. So you can even stop because the rest is just mindless eating. So the first step is always mindfulness, awareness, right? So you have to catch yourself on doing certain of these actions, right? Even in the morning, having a lot of coffee in the morning actually releases more dopamine. That's why we get addicted to it. Then what's actually happening with the caffeine?
So the caffeine actually, caffeine can give you energy.
Yes,
right?
it gives you
It's a
energy.
stimulant. But you're saying that that pleasure of drinking coffee and why we crave coffee is not really that energy that will come after. It's mostly the
Exactly, yeah. Like you don't like green tea has almost the equivalent of, if not more, caffeine in it, but you don't have people waking up in the morning and craving green tea the way that people crave coffee, right? Because when you wake up in the morning and you say like you're addicted to coffee, then it's more of an addiction. Why is it an addiction? You're not necessarily addicted to the caffeine. It's actually the dopamine hit that comes from that, right? Because when you wake up, you feel super tired, your brain feels like it's not awake. That's the low of the dopamine that I was talking about, right? So you're not at a normal. In the morning now you're low and you need the coffee to get back up to a normal level. It's not necessarily the caffeine that's getting you up to that level. It's the addiction to the dopamine release in the brain when you, say, even smell the coffee, right? Because you probably have felt this as well, right? You wake up in the morning and you just brew the coffee, and the smell of the coffee wakes you up. Right? And you can't smell
caffeine doesn't kick in right away.
And you can't exactly, yeah. You can't absorb caffeine through smell.
No.
Right, but the smell of coffee
drink, right?
makes you
will
wake.
take 30 minutes to an hour to start feeling the effect of the caffeine.
Yeah, but you instantly feel the effect of the dopamine release in your brain that wakes you up. Right? That first sip of coffee, you're awake, you're ready to go, right? But it's actually not, like you said, the caffeine, so it doesn't absorb into your system that quick, right? But just being aware is the first step, and then even like if you have a very sugary breakfast, right? Like breakfast cereals and those companies know that okay, if you start out with a big head of sugar, you're going to be craving that cereal in the mornings, right? normally you're not supposed to really crave things. If you're really craving something, then that would be an addiction, which is a dopamine release. Your brain's wanting that, right? And then a lot of time your brain will talk to you actually in your own voice. It's actually very interesting. So if you're at the grocery store and you see some candy or chips or something, and then your brain goes like, "Oh, you worked out today. You deserve it.
Okay.
Come on, go get the
Justify,
chips."
yes.
Right? You justify. So that's the dopamine receptors in your brain justifying it and actually talking to you in your own voice. It's very interesting. If you think of that, yeah.
If you're not careful with that, you can outsmart yourself.
Yes, you will.
Really?
Most of the time, you'll outsmart yourself.
Really?
Yeah. So again, just first off, being again aware of it, and it's not just the bad habits that release the dopamine, right? It's good habits as well. So, for instance, if you have like a nice, fresh, crispy apple, I think everyone has experienced this, right? You have a nice fruit, and then you eat that, or you go outside in the sun. If you go walk in the forest or something as well, like walking is really good too. Those are all also dopamine releases, but you don't get to a point where it overstimulates the brain. You want to stay away from things that overstimulate the brain. Right? You're never walking and then after a walk you're like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so tired," right? Because it releases dopamine in a normal way. It doesn't overstimulate, right, the brain. Which these days we have a lot of things that overstimulate the brain, right? You have ads through Facebook, and then you read the news, then you have the news throwing things at you, and then there's ads on the news. So everyone's always trying to grab your attention. So just sitting in silence or finding something that, if you find something that just time flies by when you're doing it, that's usually something that is really good for kind of dopamine release, right? If you really like knitting, right? If you like to do puzzles, right? If you really enjoy that and time flies by and you don't keep looking at the watch or the clock, that's a really good activity.
We call it state of flow.
Yes, flow, yeah.
When you're doing your activity that you like, and it's like there's nothing else happening, you don't think about anything else.
Yeah.
And you realize, oh, it's been doing this for an hour. Yeah, it just feels good and I got something done.
Yeah, and you feel accomplished, right? Normally, if you have like a dopamine release that is usually too much or something like that, or it's an unhealthy habit, right? After the fact, you usually feel, I shouldn't have done that, right? Like going to have fast food, you crave it, you eat it, you feel like crap.
And it's
quick.
quick.
It's quick.
It's quick.
Yeah, so if you do something that helps your life, like you're saying, doing something that habit, and then after you're like, I feel really accomplished, right? That's a good way of.
So you mentioned we were talking about this before we started recording here. You mentioned journaling. So yeah. And I was curious about, I write pretty much every night. And I think, wow, how can journaling help with that? I was asking Jamie. So what did you ask me? Why?
Why? That's the best first question I asked.
Why do I like? I start bringing everything that's in my brain. I start writing. I don't think about format, anything.
Yep.
I just put the words on the paper, and when I finish, it just feels like I feel better. I feel good.
Yep.
And so since I started, now I feel like I need to do it every day.
Yep.
So it just feels good.
Yes. Yeah. Building that routine, right? Like when the brain finds something that is good, it does release dopamine. That's what the brain does. So why it's doing that is it releases the feel-good feeling because it wants you to do this again. So the brain always realizes things and does habits and routine very easily, right? So for instance, like the last time, I don't know if anyone has really thought about opening a door. Right? So it's automatic, right? One time while you were growing up, you opened a door and it led somewhere, right? So now we just do it automatically, right? But then, for instance, if you touched a doorknob that's scorching hot, now your brain gave you another chemical in your brain that's saying, well, okay, next time you open a door, you have to check to see if it's hot first, right? And then it becomes more in the conscious mind. So that's kind of what dopamine does, is it tells you, this is a very feel-good feeling. So then when you do that the next time, it's going to want to do that, right? You're going to keep wanting to journal because it organizes the brain and it really helps the brain just become organized, right?
So we keep reinforcing that, I guess, because it's something that I realize that is good for me. So I tell myself it's good for me, and at the same time, the chemicals in my body reinforce that idea.
Yes. But then some people, they go and journal and they just can't focus, and it gives them that feel bad feeling. Like they just can't focus and they can't do it, right? So maybe journaling is not for you, but maybe doing an audio where you talk everything out loud, right? You talk to somebody about your day instead of maybe writing it down, or maybe like a speech to text thing where you talk about your day and then you actually journal in a different way, right? Whatever works for you and whatever feels good, right? So never try to put a square into a circle.
We can't just think that those processes will be just as easy as food and information, the way we have food and information today.
Yes, and especially
immediate, quick, instant rewards. No, everything else that we try to do will require some work.
Yeah, it does require work. Like the first time you tried to go walking, right, you fell. But you were very resilient. Kids are very resilient. They just keep trying and trying and trying and trying. They don't think of, well, do I need to walk? Or they don't think, they don't have that side of the brain that justifies things, right? Like, oh, no, I don't really need to walk today. I'm just going to stay. So they just keep trying, right? Which is really good to have that resilience. But again, when you grow up, you usually ask yourself or start to justify the reasons why or why you shouldn't do something, why you should or why you shouldn't. So just make sure that you think about it and okay, try it more than once.
Okay, so we have to be mindful, basically.
Yes. Yeah, be mindful. Make sure that find the things in your life that's kind of triggering that dopamine release. And if you're reducing the amount of times that you're triggering it for things that you get overstimulated, then you're going to notice that your baseline, you're going to be a lot more energy and a lot happier on your baseline. I think back to last weekend that just passed, right? So for your Thanksgiving, okay, did you eat things that trigger that dopamine, right? Maybe you ate way too much pumpkin pie, maybe you ate way too much food, right? Hopefully you guys used our holiday crash course, our holiday survival guide.
Yes, survival guide, yes. We have more holidays coming. It's a good time of the year now when most people are
and it's a good way, it's a good way to learn too, right? So think back, right? Maybe journal, as Daniel was saying, about things that you did right and then maybe the things that you did wrong that you can kind of fix come Christmas, right? And the New Year's, right? So maybe don't overeat, right? Maybe pick those certain things. And again, if you haven't got like the holiday survival guide yet, then just comment even down below in this video if you want.
It will be helpful.
Down holiday
or next month.
Yeah, exactly. Right? For Christmas or even for New Year's, but any other holiday, it all really helps with every holiday that we have. But hopefully this video is very helpful. If you guys ever have or need any more advice on dopamine release or just how to kind of control it a little bit more than having it very uncontrolled, then ask away. We'll be able to help you.
Reach out.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Every week.